This is my house.
What have the committee got me watching this time? Oh no, it was Death Races, wasn't it? And I don't mean Death Race 2000, the one with David Carradine and Sly Stallone. And I don't mean Death Race with Jason Statham. I mean Death Races, starring the Insane Clown Posse and made by the Asylum. And it was a bit of a vanity project for the Insane Clown Posse, to put it very mildly. And why was I born? Just to suffer? To borrow a phrase that I genuinely saw someone write in an internet post, I don't want people to look down on me. I don't want to be ostrich-sized. And I think they meant ostracised, but I can't be entirely sure. I assume they'd only ever heard the word and never seen it written down. I didn't want to make this video, except I clearly did, because here I am making it. Now, I had an inkling of what was going to happen when I watched Death Races, because recently I've been watching things that I used to consider bad, but after having watched the Marvels, they now seem watchable in comparison. My suspicion going in was that Death Races was not going to be one of those. I remember this film being really atrocious, and in case you tune out early, don't watch this movie. There's a free version of it on YouTube and that's still too expensive. Stick around and I'll try to explain why. So what is Death Races? It's an action gore fest and a mockbuster of the Jason Statham film, so it has a lot of violence, and violence involving cars. Like Escape from New York, a city has been walled off and made into a prison that the characters need to race through to stop a madman before he destroys America. It frankly may be easier to say what works about the film, because that's quite a short list compared to what doesn't. The sound is functional, and that's the end of the list of what works. Pretty much everything else in the film doesn't work, and by the end of the film, I kind of wish the sound didn't either, and I'll get to why later. The camera throughout the film is routinely either over or underexposed, meaning that it's frequently too bright or too dark to really see what's going on. In some scenes, it looks like the lens has Vaseline or rendered hog fat smeared on it, or appears to be entirely out of focus. The shot composition is ugly at best, the dialogue is routinely crass, not even witty, and frequently pretty racist.
Hey, pretty chicas.
Hey, chingadas.
Are we really gonna do this, boys?
None of the actors appears to be trained for stunt work, which is a problem because the movie is about half stunts. But that's less of an issue than you may imagine, because most of the action happens off camera anyway. They also seem to lack stunt people, as the fast vehicular combat that's a staple of the Death Race franchise is limited in Death Races to, by the look of it, about 20 kilometers an hour at best for health and safety reasons. Presumably because would you trust these people in an armoured ice cream van covered in spikes? No? Me neither. The bare bones of the story aren't that bad, but aren't implemented well. Some of the sets appear to be just sheets hung on a wall, and the film is edited so badly that there are large gaps in the dialogue.
And you're such a big boy.
Yes, I am. I'm big all around. You'll find out when you get plowed in a minute.
Man, where are we at?
Iowa.
It's like listening to Hassan Piker try to read out loud. In terms of actors, it doesn't really have any. It has the ex-wrestler Raven as maybe the best person in the cast, it has a lady that appears to be a stripper, and it has the Insane Clown Posse. And if you don't know, this is the Insane Clown Posse. They're allegedly an American hip-hop duo formed in Detroit in 1989, consisting of rappers Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope, who had the gimmicks of dressing as clowns and having rhymes, most of which don't even rhyme. They don't seem to have good flow, they're not very good at writing beats, or in fact rapping, going by this film. Take these lyrics from their seminal track Miracles as an example. I'm not going to play it for reasons of both copyright and taste, but here are the lyrics. Water, fire, air and dirt. Effing magnets. How do they work? Lyrics so bad they managed to launch 1,000 memes. And in answer to that question, it's kind of complicated. In ferromagnetism it's supposedly due to the spin states of unpaired electrons. Does that help? Electrons are subatomic particles in atoms that supposedly act as little dipoles. You could maybe think of them as being like tiny magnets, so when they're unpaired and all pointing in the same direction, some materials become magnetic. Like I said, it's kind of complicated, and the Insane Clown Posse appear to be confused by the concept of crop circles. If you want better than that, maybe Sabine Hossenfelder has a video for you, but with the Insane Clown Posse, unlike Magnets, I failed to see the attraction. Take these lyrics from their track, If I Was a King. Quote, "If I was a king, all would me. Big bag piles of jewels for my homies. We would go to war and take everybody's land. No clothes allowed for female citizens." Was that even supposed to be a rhyme? Land and citizens, seriously. And later in that same track, this one. "Dance for me and feed me grapes before I throw that to the snakes." So ladies, I guess just thank your lucky stars the Insane Clown Posse are not your kings. They seem to have a group of hardcore fans called Juggalos or Juggalettes for women, and this will come up later. And we get those lyrics to what appears to be a sample from the disco track Rasputin by Boney M. This movie is an hour and a half long, and throughout its runtime they play, I think it's maybe 3 or 4 separate Insane Clown Posse tracks over and over again, and I didn't even want to hear them once. So you remember earlier when I said the sound was the only thing that was functional? Well, after hearing an Insane Clown Posse track for the 4th or 5th time, the sound working is actually a disadvantage. I tried to identify their tracks in the film from the lyrics, and they appeared to be called Walk Into the Darkness, Crop Circles, and If I Was a King, and I'm serious, don't watch this movie. It's truly bloody awful, I'm not joking. It's not even ironically funny like Birdemic 2 and the giant jumbo jellyfish.
What stung you?
Something stung me.
What stung you?
A jellyfish.
A jellyfish?
Yes, a giant jumbo jellyfish.
Or The 7 Adventures of Sinbad and the Big Crab. This film taught me things about myself. I think I have an unusually high degree of empathy. When I watch a film or read a book, I kind of enter the character's mind and I can't help doing it. And I think that's maybe why I can't stand sadism in films. I can't read the book Crime and Punishment anymore because I can't stand to be inside the mind of Raskolnikov. I have trouble with American Psycho because Patrick Bateman's mind is not a nice place to be, and for the same reason I struggle with both Eli Roth and the Insane Clown Posse. I find being inside the heads of the Insane Clown Posse to be very unpleasant, and like I need to take a shower. So this is the spoiler section, even if to be frank, I can't really spoil this movie. In 2033, America has got very bad, and a whole city has been walled off and turned into a giant lawless prison. Inside that, a criminal called Reaper, being played by Raven, is plotting to blow up America with explosive sarin gas. And don't even get me started on that. He's having a scientist make it, and he's pumping it into the groundwater, and the process is slowed by Raven executing his own man on multiple occasions. Someone tapes him doing this, and the news gets out to the governor of the area, who comes up with a plan to deal with it. His plan is a death race. 4 teams of 2 people are sent into the prison in a race in special murder cars, and the first to get enough points by randomly slaughtering the people in the prison city and taking out Reaper gets to live and walk free. 1 team is a crude stereotype of Hispanic gang members, 1 team are femme fatale women whose name I can't even say on YouTube. Imagine the name of intimate lady parts being mixed with Vegemite and you're in the ballpark. 1 team are some army guys and the last team are the Insane Clown Posse in an ice cream van with an industrial mincer on the front. Reaper controls the entire prison, so he sends the inmates after the racers, who they gleefully slaughter for game points. Along the way there's a killer cyborg that works for Reaper and falls in love with one of the femme fatales, leading to a very uncomfortable, non-consensual love scene. The army guys turn up deceased when one of the Hispanic guys asks why they can't just run. It turns out the governor has had explosives put in the heads of all the contestants, like the Suicide Squad, and the Hispanic guy loses his head. The Insane Clown Posse, meanwhile, run into a bunch of women that appear affectionate at first but actually want to hurt them. Maybe they heard their lyrics. And the women in the film, no joke, talk about the Insane Clown Posse's great renown as poets and artists.
I know why you're here.
For some sweet, sweet loving?
Right now you upstanding the chubby in my drawers, so I'm nutting all over the place looking at your ass.
Your reputation as great poets have crossed into the red zone.
I reiterate, these are some of their lyrics. Dance for me and feed me grapes before I throw that to the snakes. Hardly Ozymandias by Percy Shelley, is it? Or how about these lyrics from the Insane Clown Posse? In the name of the witch, I cut the head off a mule. I gutted it out, put it on, and then I wore it to school. Then the women tried to cut their balls off, so they hit them repeatedly with hatchets. After a lot more nonsense, the Insane Clown Posse get to Reaper's base. After hitting a lot more people with hatchets, the one remaining Mexican falls for one of the femme fatales, and out of jealousy, him and the other femme fatale do each other in. So all that's left is one femme fatale and the Insane Clown Posse in Reaper's base, until the femme fatale walks around a corner, and as a reflex, one of the clowns embeds a hatchet in her chest. They're then out to tackle Reaper when the soldiers, who it turns out faked their death, come in and fire an RPG at all of them. Violent J then gets some shrapnel in the leg and tells the other one of the Insane Clown Posse to go on without him. To do it for us, he says. Do it for the world. Do it for the juggalos.
But it's time for you to be the hero you were meant to be. Do it for us. Do it for the world. Do it for the juggalos.
The film then mercifully ends at last, with the other one of the Insane Clown Posse unleashing his fury on the governor and his men, and the governor pushing the button to explode everyone's heads. And the lone femme fatale is somehow the only survivor. Somehow her head didn't explode when the governor pushed the button, and she seems to have just walked off the hatchet that was embedded several inches in her chest. I can't even see a wound or damage on her clothes at the end of the film. I guess everyone just forgot. Why was this abomination of a film even made? So to sum up, anyone that says Madam Web is the worst movie ever, watch it back to back with Death Racers and see if you still hold to that position, because Death Racers is bloody awful. It's not even a B movie, it's more like an F movie.
Hurry, somebody call an ambulance. Call 911. Don't worry, miss. They're gonna get help.
Please, we need an ambulance now. A woman has been stung on the beach.
What happened to her?
I don't know, something about a giant jumbo jellyfish.
Fuck. Jesus. Never rub another man's rhubarb.